Good evening, everybody. Could you give me a thumbs up if you could hear me out there, please?
Can barely hear you, Kate.
I can hear you.
All right, is this better? Wonderful. I'm not speaking much, so I will speak like this for the moment. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:01. Thank you all for joining us for our annual budget consultation. And before we begin, I would love to acknowledge that we are on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Coast Somaliac speaking people. And as an uninvited guest on these incredible lands, I would like to share that my commitment to truth and reconciliation is my constant educating myself on our shared truth. So I will now turn this over to our presenters. What shall I just invite? I'll pass this over to our superintendent, Andrew Samuel. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Chair Toy, thank you. We have 4 presentations tonight, and the first one is International Union of Operating Engineers. I don't have a name, but Colleen Weens, I see you're on the call.
Good evening, everyone. Hamid Saw, our business manager, is waiting to be let into the meeting. If you could let him in, please.
I don't see him in the waiting room, Colleen.
He's saying he's waiting. Okay, I'll go forward with the presentation then.
And if you would like to ask him if you would just like to re-click the link, we are trying to wait a couple of moments, but we have a list of the waiting room and we do not see him in the waiting room. And I did also want to share, I'm sorry, Trustee Pucci sent his regrets tonight. Would you like us to wait a few moments, Colleen?
I'm just calling him to see if he's,
Wonderful, we can wait.
hello, Hamid?
Hi,
Are you in the right waiting room?
that's what I'm just double checking right now.
Because our chair, Kate Toy, said she doesn't see you in the waiting room.
Because I'm clicking on today's date, which saved in my calendar, and now I'm seeing here that this meeting is scheduled for the 21st.
Okay, so you want to do the one for the 16th that was sent today, well, at 10 o'clock.
All right, give me 1 minute. I'll be on.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, if you could just please give us 1 minute, he'll be,
Yes, of course.
thank you.
Of course, Colleen. Hello, if you have just joined us, thank you so much for joining us virtually and in person, and we'll just be a few moments before we are underway. Hello, Clement, please present.
Simon, can you hear us?
Hi there. I'm so sorry. I forwarded the wrong link and was sitting there. My apologies.
All fine, thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Well, again, my apologies for coming in late, but I'm here now, so let's get started. So the International Union of Operating Engineers wishes to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the unceded territory of the traditional Simon territory. Good evening, trustees, parents, and members. The IUOE appreciates the opportunity to meet with the Board of Education to share and discuss budgetary issues facing the school district number 52. When making your decisions, the IUOE represents the Board of Education to ensure that all decisions are made in a fair and equitable process where everyone will benefit. The International Union of Operating Engineers Local 882 represents job classifications pertaining to support staff employed by School District 52. The Board of Education must realize the impact and outcome of all decisions made to balance the budget. I have attended many budgetary meetings where the Board of Education has made it clear that budget cuts are not directly to impact students. One must understand that in reducing the number of educational assistants does directly impact the support for many of the students and their learning outcomes. The educational assistants are spread too thin while expecting them to support more and more students. At one time, the Board of Education focused on the need to hire qualified educational assistants by endorsing early childhood educational programs offered at the local college. It is evident that the education does not typically reflect the educational assistant's effectiveness in this position. Any kind of training or experience in the fields of the student's needs are absolutely essential. This experience is not attained or taught by enrolling in more courses. We need educational assistants in the classrooms now more than ever. Each year, the number of students with higher needs increases. At Charles Hayes Secondary School, 21% of the student body are designated with special needs, in addition to having 5 students require one-on-one educational assistance. Currently, there are 11 educational assistants at Charles Hayes Secondary School in positions and 1 vacant position. Indigenous family resource workers are very dedicated and supportive to assist families and students at each worksite. School libraries are now referred to as the Library Learning Center, Learning Commons for physical, virtual, and cultural spaces. Library assistant positions take on a whole new meaning with the absence of full-time teacher librarians. They are the resource person, the person who organizes and manages book fairs, school theme days, and the person that opens the library doors each morning, encouraging students of all ages to engage in learning, whether it be literacy or numeracy. Secretaries and secretarial duties and expectations have increased with additional financial reporting, school sport trips, team fundraising, attendance data, attendance calls to homes, etc. If the school district is serious about saving money, then invest in the MyEd portal. Report cards are emailed to the parents or guardians. It saves times on the processing, paper envelopes, and postage. The majority of the parents have some form of data or internet available to them. Maintenance, skilled trades staff seem to be difficult to attract and retain. 2 electricians have retired. They've contracted 1 electrician, 1 plumber has moved, and 2 carpenters retired. However, one of the retired carpenters remains employed performing various full-time projects. The IT has 3 technicians working tirelessly to support the staff, maintaining equipment and programs, down to internet, Wi-Fi access, and connections. The district employs 3 bus drivers. Each bus driver has a schedule to maintain. In one form or another, the increase of requests of new personnel or job duties are added, therefore increasing the workload. There seems to be an established theme when looking at the budget line for educational assistance. Last year, the number was $135,633. This year, the number is $1,255. $1,255 $1,373, or 64% of what it was initially. It's not surprising when educational assistants are absent or reassigned as a non-certification teacher, there is no replacement due to the lack of casuals on the list. One position took over 4 months to fill. The employer continues to save money by not being able to replace those absent employees at the work sites. On a daily basis, absent educational assistants are not replaced due to the lack of casuals on the list. One only hopes that when excluded staff attend job fairs across Canada, that trades and support staff positions were included in their search. In deliberating the 2023-2024 budget, please consider the following. Before the Board of Education continues to pass 2-week spring breaks, please consider that the hardship on single income earners and their families. This year, these members will have a bit of a cushion in receiving their retroactive pay. Also, please consider that the evidence from Monique Gray Smith regarding the school breaks and the trauma that students endure. The 2022-2023 supply budget was decreased. Did you know that many of our students did not come to school with the basic supplies such as pens, pencils, and paper? Each year school purchase less supplies as prices increase and the supply budget is decreased. The affordability grant was a godsend, assisting schools at least to maintain some of the basics. Student absenteeism should be a concern. Did you know that the community members are organizing and donating money to school curriculum courses that exhaust their course budget? The affordability grant has been alleviated. The union is inquiring on a couple of things, and one, where is the cost savings noted in the budget for the support staff employees who do not take their 8 prorated sick days for 10-month employees or 9 prorated sick days for 12-month employees? Just wondering which budget line would one locate the income for the BMO credit card incentive? The IUOE hopes that the Board of Education is able to demonstrate due diligence and transparency through the budget process. If you're unsure about the information, ask or visit the work site to have clear understanding of the events occur by observing those that are on the front lines. In closing, we'd like to summarize by saying that there are many members at various work sites who go above and beyond their call of duties. These employees do it for the students. They do not want the recognition or a pat on the back. The IUOE seeks the least impactful for those that are directly working with these students and support staff to feel respected, valued, and with a playing field that is level, no matter who you are. The IUOE strives to work together as a team for the betterment of our students through our members, and ask you to consider wisely when making your decisions as it impacts the students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My understanding is wonderful. We now have 10 minutes where trustees are able to ask questions if they have any. Trustee Warren?
Thank you, Chair. Apologize, couldn't figure out how to put my hand up on the screen there.
All good.
Thank you for your presentation. We do appreciate, of course, all of our employees that they go out of their way to do the best possible work they can do for our district. We understand that. We know that happens all the time. And I thank you for pointing it out because it's an important point to make. I do have a couple of questions about what you were speaking there. First one would be the MyEd you said early on. How would that process assist us? Where would you say that would assist us with our budgeting? So that's my question there, if you could answer that. And then the second question would be on the hiring of assistants, which you talked about going away to job fairs we would help us. And would there be any other ways you could see that we could help ourselves by doing other things other than that one thing?
Well, to the first question with regards to the MyEd program, that I think would speak to efficiencies and cost savings, where there's time spending, as we would put it, stuffing envelopes and paying postage and sending them out. where this is now an electronic outlet for providing the same information. And, with the way things are going, everything is looking to be improved as we step forward into the future. And this is definitely an opportunity for that to be looked at.
Thank you.
Okay.
And the second,
With regards to the second one, I will actually ask Colleen if she would give me a hand in assisting me with explaining this one. Colleen?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello?
Hi there.
And that was to do with the job fairs?
well, it's more specifically actually because it was said that the job fairs would be one approach, but what other approaches should you think we should be doing other than the job fair?
Well, I understand that there is job postings that go out on Indeed. A lot of people do not look at Indeed. I know that we used to advertise in the local paper, but I do know that there is a cost to that as well. A lot of people that are being hired or being looked at as prospective employees, I think is coming from word of mouth from people that are already employed by School District 52. I'm not sure if where else for people to look, or maybe advertise that our job on the school district's website, that job postings you can look on Indeed, or post job postings on the website. I'm not sure if there's postings on the website or not.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Colleen. Any other questions from trustees? I'm not seeing any. I thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you so much for being with us tonight, and also thank your members for all that they do for our district.
We will. Thank you.
Next up, we have our Indigenous Education Department. Yes, Roberta Itzertsa.
Hello, everyone. Emma Hupel. Cam and I are on right now. Denise Esham is going to join us. But she was told the time slot for 7:30, so she might kind of join in around that time.
I would offer, what would you like us to do? Would you like us to pause? Or would you like us to go?
Maybe a couple minutes, yeah.
But, so for everyone, we're going to pause for a moment. If you would like to have a bio break of any sort, stretch your legs, have a tea. We'll resume as soon as Denise Esham joins us.
I think we can start if that's okay. Denise will join us when she can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hi, Cam.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Hi, Cam.
Hello, everybody.
So Doixit Newsome, everybody, for coming tonight and listening to everyone's presentations. Thank you so much. Ours is kind of short and just discussion. We don't have a presentation or anything, but we just kind of sharing some updates and some of the work that we've been kind of doing recently and for many, many years. With the kind of recent increase and updates, there's been huge, in our district, there's been huge learning on a regular daily and weekly and monthly basis throughout all the schools and the community on Indigenous education and learning. Along with pretty significant events for the whole school district and community that happen, and we're quite proud of those events and learning. And also the Tsimshian language alone is pretty unique in the province and Canada. It's one of a kind that we have in our district that's embedded right throughout our school schedules. We're very proud of the work and the support by the district that we do have. The increase with Indigenous education provincially with lots of policy has significant changes as rights holders also, with everything from the ministry with family involvement and teacher recruitment and the recent grad requirement for Indigenous focused courses, anti-Indigenous racism education, family involvement. There's a lot of pressures from the ministry for accountability for Indigenous education by all, which is great. It's absolutely great. It's amazing. This is something we've been advocating for many, many years, way before Cam and I have started. So this is really good stuff. But it also means a lot of work and a lot of hours and a lot of people. And it's still, as much as we want to support that professional learning for all and support that Indigenous learning throughout the schools, it still needs to be also Indigenous led, Indigenous collaborated, and having rights holders and voices at the table for decisions. And that also takes time. So I think Cam was going to talk a little bit about increasing that leadership and staffing and those kind of movements also.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. First off, I just got to apologize because I think that I'm in the lobby of VGH right now. So there's going to be a lot of busyness around me. So I'm going to, hopefully you all can hear me. And but I think a lot of the things that Roberta hit on, yeah, they're great. They're strides that that the province and our school district in particular have been advocating for a long time. But I think that when you talk about First Nations led education, I think that what we need to do is take a look at what's worked in the past. I think that although it's been an uphill battle for First Nations learners and First Nations people, not only in BC, but across Canada and the world for that matter, in attaining a high academic standard, but at the same time making sure that their cultural base and that soundness in where we all come from needs to be also kept intact, and it's walking that very fine line. One of the things that I've been really vocal about is teacher training and teacher recruitment and working from within. I think that School District 52 has always been a leader within the province in that regard. And I think that it's time for us to really advocate and push for that even more so, given the fact that if you take a look at, I started my university training a couple of years before SFU and the school district collaborated and did a teacher training program within the Rupert area. I think that that's something that we really need to push for because the stats and the data that's out there for such a process is quite glaring. If you take a look at the group that I finished with in my teacher training program within the Rupert area, 16 of us graduated from that cohort. And unfortunately, 3 of the individuals have passed, but the rest are still teaching, whether that be in Haida Gwaii, Terrace, Kikatla, Simpson, Hartley Bay. You know, those teachers are still dedicated to the teaching profession and enhancing First Nations learners and keeping that cultural component alive and well, but also delving really deeply into the academics of it all. And I really think that that's something that we really need to push for and fight for. And I'm going to do my part in particular. I don't know if you all know this, but I'm part of the Tsimshian leadership meetings that have been happening for about the last year and a half, where we are trying to find common ground as the 7 Tsimshian nations on the North Coast here. And education is always front and foremost on the leadership's minds. So I've been putting that food for thought into our meetings, and I definitely am getting a lot of momentum. Exactly how we're going to go about and do something like this. I think that I have a meeting again on the 3rd of March. And I'm just going to pose it to the rest of the group in the sense of how are we going to push this forward? Because I know for sure it's not just going to come from the one nation, or sorry, the one community. It's got to be a push from all 7 of us. But we also need to have a partner like school district that's going to help us through this process. And we also need to have a partner such as SFU or UBC or whatever post-secondary institution that we want to partner up with and make this happen. So that's something that I think and the AdVet committee thinks is where we should be heading. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions in that regard. And yeah, I don't have too much more to say. Probably have used up more time than I was allotted anyway.
You still have 25 minutes, Cam.
Sorry, what was that?
You still have 25 minutes.
Oh, I could keep on going. Let's go with the questions then. Sorry, I should have explained. I should have explained why I'm down here. I'm on fingers crossed. My mother-in-law just came through surgery. She had her, I don't know the medical term. She had her womb removed because they figured out that her cancer stemmed from her ovaries, and that's what we're doing today.
Thank you, Cam, for at this moment to join us in all of this, and I hope you feel all of our prayers for you.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you, Roberta.
I was just going to ask if Denise had anything to add, or if you had any comments, Denise. If not, I just have a couple more comments.
Sorry, I did have one more thing that I should add in the sense that I don't think that That's not me.
Sorry, Denise is, she's at the Oneida too, watching, being a big fan, so her Wi-Fi is very low there. So that's okay.
All I was going to say was there's so many success stories within First Nations communities and First Nations in particular, and I don't think that it's something that we don't need to reinvent anything here. I think that we can look to success stories outside of our communities, but also, really within our communities. I think that there's a lot of good, rich resources right within ourselves that we know what's working. And I know that the First Nations communities, in particular the Tsimshian Nation, are more than willing to share and talk about not only what has worked, but really what hasn't worked. And I think that that's the key there in realizing that happy medium in which we can tap into and make all First Nations learners successful, not only in our region, but all of BC and for the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cam. The only thing I have, and I don't know if we kind of touched on this, but I guess to kind of come across as we do need more Indigenous educators, specifically with math and literacy, and then with equity, but also within leadership and language leadership. There's just so much more work to be done. I know that, targeted funds are there to support above and beyond that needs to be supported already by CORE. And if our school district has 64% Indigenous students, 64% of the CORE budget is generated from Indigenous students. So we have to kind of think of the Indigenous education supports that's out there, and then the leadership and as collaborators, rights holders, and decision makers. That all takes a lot of time and leadership. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Cam and Roberta, and thank you, Denise, for joining us. And I think I saw Trustee Horn's hand up right away. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by saying thanks to Cam for coming on here from the hospital and wishing you all the best with your stay and success with your stay there. You brought up lots of great points, and I'm always very impressed with the Indigenous Education Council and the work that they've done towards the language process, which we all are very proud of. We like to tell people how proud we are of that. And I've witnessed it myself, how the hard work gets done and how you assist and do that and then bring it to us. So thank you very much, and for all the people that are involved in that. Also, Roberta, thank you too for speaking tonight to us. So thank you for that. Several points. I'm really impressed with your story about you're talking about Indigenous teaching and the teachers that came through the program with you. And it's a great success story that you say. And clearly that shows us that it's something that we need to really work hard at. And so as a board, I would hope that we would be able to work with you guys and do our part to do that and to make that work, right? So I would hope that that would happen, and I'll try to remind myself to continuously push at that. And perhaps we can talk some more about that another time. Also, talking about the number of Indigenous students that we have in our district, a very important point as well. And the way that we are working our strategic plan into our processes and using that as a guide to the board to work to make sure that all of our students are helped out in the right way. And again, with your assistance, and as Roberta said, this stuff takes time. It takes time to make the right decisions and time to talk to the right people. And all that time has to be given to have that happen in the right way and to make sure it happens in the right way. and then to check that it is happening once you've begun and the process and gone into the process. So all of those are fantastic points. So thank you for that. And I'm sure that when the budget comes around for us, that we'll keep those points in mind. So thank you very much for your presentation today.
Thank you, Trustee Warren. Any other trustees have questions? Trustee Sanchez? You're still muted.
I don't have a question, just a comment. And I just want to say that I am so proud of what's happening with the work that Roberta and Cameron and Jeremy is always doing so well. But you know what I was thinking in terms of the representation, Aboriginal representation teachers? Years ago, we had a project, I think it was with the SFU or UBC, I can't remember which one, where we had, you know, we had some type of collaboration with them, and they were coming in and sort of getting some of the teachers here and to join with the project, so that they were coming in to help us to get those teachers who would probably not be able to go to Vancouver, but SFU, they came in and did a good job. And I'm just wondering if that would be something else, because I'd really like to see some more Aboriginal representation as teachers in our school too. Believe me, when the kids see somebody that they can understand, somebody that they know, they have that real good feeling, you know, of belonging. It would make a lot of sense. I just thought that really worked. And I'm just wondering if there was any way that that could work again.
Thank you, Trustee Sanchez. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much for joining us. And Cam, thank you. And again, our hearts are with you and your mother-in-law. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Just to note, speaking of some Tsimshian Semitic language, tomorrow morning is the implementation day at the Lester Center, and it starts at 9 o'clock. And the whole morning we'll be talking about our unique program in our territory about language revitalization and the background and how we kind of been doing this work for many, many years and what our goals are for the future. So that'll be really good to have everybody there.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you always for all that you do, Roberta, and your whole department. Thank you, PRDTU. I know that we're running early. Are you fine to present, or would you like a pause?
I'm fine to present, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
I don't really know if everyone hear me out there. It's weird doing this presentation in person, actually.
I see.
Everyone's good? Okay. My presentation is actually going to, I think, weave quite nicely with the first two presentations. And it won't take too long, I don't think. I made a PowerPoint, but in the interest of austerity, I decided to leave it out. So essentially, everything that I've heard is going to be cutbacks are required and necessary. The union understands this and the reasons, many of the reasons for it. But when we look at where those cutbacks need to come from, I want you to sort of think of like concentric circles around the child. You have our student, then you've got the most impactful people. According to any study I've ever read, the most impactful is not the system you use, it's not the books in the room, it's the teacher and the EA in the classroom. That's the one that makes the most impact. It's by far the most bang for the buck. Then you move outwards from there into, you know, you've got your librarians, coaches, LSTs, and then moving outwards, you have the supports, the janitors, everything that keeps the school running, the principals, and then of course, beyond that, we have the district and the board and our superintendent, the trustee. Our opinion is just, if those cuts have to come, that they need to come as far away from the students as possible. And that means chewing in from the outside, not going towards the middle. I think the middle needs to stay where it's at. The middle's having a tough time right now anyway. I know sometimes the easiest solution is just to up those class size numbers and then we don't need as many teachers, but I can tell you from a very short-lived experiment at middle school, when we ran up to close to the provincial limits, it lasted about a month, and then it was just obviously breaking down. The needs of our students are just they were too high to support it, and actually the rooms weren't even big enough. It was an awful time until we brought on Gordon Bunning to take some of that pressure off the rest of the grade 7 classes. In our opinion, there shouldn't be any new things started up. There shouldn't be any additions, no roles added, no of those outside roles added until those savings have been found, so that none of them results in one less teacher. Because right now, I think we're running pretty much bare bones where we need to. Second, and this is why it kind of dovetails nicely, is because the teacher and the EA, though, that is the support network. So I completely agree with everything the IOUB rep said. We cannot be taking away EAs or teachers to balance any budget. Dovetailing with Roberta's and Cam's presentation is, I think, absolutely, we need, it's a problem and also an opportunity, because we do have the window to maybe explore these options too. This could be the perfect time to add a number of Indigenous teachers to our classrooms. Right now, we are running a lot of uncertified teachers in our district. I don't think anyone feels this is the ideal solution going forward. Our uncertified are doing the best they can, and thank you for them, because we were really straining before we had them. But I don't think anyone feels this is the ideal scenario going forward. And the other issue of this is, I mean, we are, in terms of the staff, I think if you look at the average age of teachers in this district, it's up there. And they are going to be retiring quickly. So, I mean, look at the first page, look at the first 2 pages almost, the seniority list. And I can count, it starts taking me 2, 3, 4 hands to count the number of teachers that are retiring. So if we cut positions down, and we found this when we brought in the district itinerant position, and then those teachers came in, and then because of financial reasons and whatever you want to say about that situation, revoke that position. We lost a number of qualified good teachers. And 2 years later, we suddenly are running a ton of uncertified teachers. Like, we let these people go. So if we cut positions now, then they are not going to stay here. No, like, people who come here for a full-time job. They're not going to come up here for work every once in a while unless we can offer them something. And if we cut positions now, when, like, I can think right off the bat of 8 retirees next year, we're just going to be hiring uncertifieds to fill those positions again. We need to be attracting people to this district aggressively. We need to be, I love the SFU program for working with us, and actually, especially for Indigenous teachers, which we all agree there needs to be more of. This is, like I said, it's a problem, but it's also a great opportunity if we're forward-looking, creative, look at all the options available, but we can't be cutting teachers right now under no circumstances, and we need to be adding everything we think of, we need to be adding more, frankly, not cutting. So that's kind of our baseline as the PRDTU, is we're running low here, and we don't want to be looking at options like, well, legally you are allowed to have 32 kids in a class. Like, it's not work, it doesn't work here. I can tell you that as a person who went through it for 2 months, And, you know, those grade 7 teachers that year, we collectively had 70 years of teaching experience. So it wasn't an issue of us being overwhelmed by the job, right? I mean, it was overwhelmed by the needs. And it went horribly until it was just so obvious and bad that we brought in another teacher. So I just want to put that out there for everyone. I just want to make sure there's no creative new plans or projects that take money away from that room, because that room needs to just not be touched right now in this district. And that's pretty much my presentation.
Thank you so much. Questions from the trustees? Trustee Horn.
I waited to try and encourage someone else to ask some questions. So. Thank you for the presentation. You make a lot of great points. The fact that teachers are our #1 resource is the most important, and one that we continuously look at and talk about and discuss and work through. So you make important points about the way that we have operated in the past and things that we have done. So thank you very much for bringing that forward. And thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you, Trustee Horn. Any other questions from trustees? Not seeing any. I will thank you again for your presentation. PRPA. Hello, Jeremy. Are you fine to present? Would you like, we are quite a bit ahead of
Nope,
schedule.
I'm fine. Sorry, my camera was not. I do need to share my screen, so I don't know if that's possible. I do have a PowerPoint.
If you can, yes. He's all over.
It's still saying disabled. but-
You try sharing your screen, see what happens.
What's that?
Can you start sharing your screen?
Oh, yep. It's saying host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, try now.
Okay. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Jeremy Jans. I am principal of the, I'm principal of Pacific Coast School, and I'm also the president of the Prince Rupert Principal Association. We'd first like to acknowledge that this is taking place on the unceded territory, the Tsimshian people, and thank you to the Tsimshian people for allowing us to have this meeting here. Just to start off, I think what we would really like to talk about is the idea of network effects and facilitation, right? So the idea of network effects is, and leveraging it is, and I kind of have it the first bullet point there, the network effect is a phenomenon by which the value or utility of a user derives from the good or service is increased by the square of its interconnections. So this is the idea that the more interconnections, the more things that are happening, right? The more value you get out of it, right? And really, it's administrators that are at the core of facilitating these interconnections and stuff like that, right? So we coordinate and we facilitate, you know, students, teachers, parents, EAs, maintenance, community connections, outside agencies. It's really the administrator that has the ability to do that, right? Teachers are great in the classroom. That's what they do. They do an amazing job in there. EAs are great in their roles there too. But it's really the administrator that kind of makes all of this, you know, hum a bit, right? One second here. Oh, there we go. So students are really also better served when those interconnections are thoughtful, right? They're designed, they're coordinated, and they're facilitated. And so we really want to make a point that that's really where the administrator role is, right? Is creating that sort of harmonic hum of the network effects that just operates, right? There's no, you know, one person that creates that. right? But really it's the administrators are the ones that are tasked with helping facilitate that, right? In the grand scheme of things through their supervision for learning. The value of administrators. Administrators are both leaders and we are also teachers. So a lot of the VPs, particularly in the elementary school, are actually 0.8 teaching and 0.2 administration. There are also secondary VPs might have a bit of a different ratio there, but it probably wouldn't be more than 0.5 administration and 0.5 teaching, right? Principals also teach. It's not just the VPs. In my role, I definitely have a teaching component, but that can range from 0.5 teaching to 0 and vice versa, 0.5 administration to 1.0. And just a word kind of on VP and sort of economic value there. You know, a VP's salary really is only 13.5% about a category 6 teacher, right? Which is a teacher with their master's degree at that 10-year mark, right? But what you get, right, for that is you also get a facilitator of that network effects. You get somebody that can go out there and do things that, you know, teachers just can't do by virtue of the structure of how things are organized, right? It's just, you know, their role is in the classroom and that's good, right? So we also want to talk about, you know, succession planning, right? You know, our principals aren't always going to be here. You know, I know Sage was talking about teachers retiring or moving on or whatever it is. Well, you know, same goes with principals, right? So it really behooves the district for those VPs to be gaining that level of experience and understanding, you know, how do you facilitate those network effects and how do you coordinate all these like balls kind of juggling them all at once, right? And the other thing is we have a fiduciary duty to the board and so do VPs, right? We are, you know, in many ways the board's spokesperson. We implement the board policy, right? And there's actually no other, well, other than the senior admin too, but there's no other role really that has fiduciary duty to the board other than the DOI, the secretary treasurer, the superintendent, principals. So it's just a word on little retirements here. Looking at some projections, you know, we're looking at either retirements or transfers or whatever. It's looking like possibly 1 this year, maybe about 2 next year, 1 or 2 the year after, right? So over the next 5 years, we're looking at about 7 or maybe 43% turnover, right? So having those VPs there ready to sort of move into some of those roles and understand those roles and work within those roles, really it behooves the board to certainly maintain you know what's already there, right? You know, administrator's role really is there to support school board objectives, right? So there is a structural difference between teachers and administrators as defined by the School Act, right? As I said, administrators actually have a fiduciary duty to the board. We're legally obligated to represent the board, right? Teachers are not, right? They can go on strike, they can speak out against the board. You know, you probably don't hear administrators complaining too much. Well, that's because we're here to implement the board, right? The teachers in IOUE, you know, they really have a duty to their union. That's their first duty, whereas as our duty is to the board, right? So these structural differences also allow administrators though to leverage resources in ways not afforded by the teachers, right? Or other things, right? Because, you know, we can go out and do those things or that you know, they just can't do it by structure. You know, you're in the classroom, you're doing this and you're working well with the kids kind of thing, right? So just a bit about, you know, work intensification for administrators. This is a big thing. It's not just in this district, it's, you know, really across. But this is just a quick graph here looking at the ratio of administrator FTE to student population. And we can see that the student population has dropped. It's gone down about 8.12%. But the total enrolling administration FTE, so that's administrators that are in the schools and stuff like that, that's changed by over double that, right? So, but you know, the work hasn't changed and it stayed the same, right? We still have to make those facilitations. We still have to create those network effects, right? So the student admin ratio is actually doubled, right? So that creates earlier days where we're at work earlier, opening up the school, doing things like that, and we have longer evenings as an administrator. So that's a level of work sort of intensification, right? Right. So admin teaching time has also increased, right? Due to levels of reduced teaching staff or a lack of qualified staff, uncerts. Again, we're also, you know, glad we have uncerts because it would even be more crazy. But you know, uncerts still have a fairly large learning curve, and really, it's the administrators that have to kind of step in there and help, right? It doesn't mean that they don't get help from other teachers around, right? But it's the administrator that really has to monitor that and make sure they're kind of doing it right. And then obviously TTOCs too, right? We could always use more of those. So when there's not enough TTOCs or whatever, guess what? Admin's in the classroom, the other one's having to do it, and they have to put all that admin time or that that supervision thing on hold and have to do it later. It's not like that work goes away, right? It's still there, right? Yeah, we pick up a lot of the slack, and as it's been stated, we are a high needs district, right? And that just creates a lot of demands, right? But despite this, we're supervising with less FTE, but we're supervising as much, right? So we have, school plans, classroom structures, we have remedy, we have maintenance, janitorial, IT, secretarial, before and after school programs, board initiated projects, school initiated projects, community-based projects, volunteering. We're still supervising all of this, right? But with less time to do it. And so we really just want to make it clear to the board that that level of supervision hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is how much time we're allotted to do it in. And really all that means is we're just working, earlier mornings, later nights. We're spending less time away from our families and loved ones and stuff like that, right? So, we also have increase in dysregulated behavior, right? From students, parents, and staff, right? When a staff member is really frustrated with a kid, for a student for whatever reason, they usually march them down to the office or something, and then it's that administrator that's going to have to kind of work through that and navigate that space, right? And same with parents when parents really upset that Sally did something to Susie, they're coming to administrators to navigate that space, and that also speaks to that sort of network effect that we're talking about, that we're the ones that are really coordinate all these running things, all these balls in the air. It's us, and when it's done well, which all our administrators do, it really enhances the learning and capacity. It enhances the capacity for teachers to teach, EAs to do their work, and everything else. But if you constrain too much and there's stresses, stresses filter down through the system. A little bit about 0 to K childcare. That's something that's being talked a lot about in administrative circles. When I go to some of the conferences down south, so there is an extra responsibility, right? Again, there's longer days for those administrators, right? There's potentially managing more staff for longer periods, and there's also a lot more paperwork that comes with that, right? So and that's more for the on site, right? That's kind of a bit of an issue. There's also a level of child exhaustion, right? And that's nothing that we can deal with. It is what it is. I mean, kids need that early entrance, and they need to stay there till when they need to stay there. But just to kind of make that point that it's people are going to have to work with that kid that's like, oh my God, I've been here since 7 a.m. and it's 5 o'clock. It's a lot for little guys. This is some data collected by the BCPP BCP-VPA. We showed it, I think, last year, just to show, levels of burnout. And this is province-wide, right? So over the past 3 months, my level of work stress has impacted my ability to perform at best, right? And that just speaks to the thing that the more stressed, our administrators are, that is going to filter down through the system, right? So, healthy administrators create healthy schools, create healthy systems, and healthy network effects, right? Network effects can go in opposite directions too, right? I rarely leave work feeling mentally or physically exhausted, right? Most of them do. In fact, about 90% at that point feel mentally and physically exhausted by the time they're at work, right? Or by the time they leave work. I've experienced or seen colleagues experience harassment, bullying, and or threats in personal or social media platforms from parents, students, and community. So, we kind of are the front lines. When somebody wants to yell at somebody, they generally want to yell at an administrator. So it's us that have to kind of maintain that regulation, listen thoughtfully, kindly, and then try to find solutions to move forward to those frustrations within the community, or whatever it is, right? And so it's, having, administrators that are mentally healthy and physically healthy really allows us to navigate those spaces more. And that's really increased. I mean, we just came through COVID. We also now have, inflation, which is really increased pressures on families. And so that, has created more, dysregulated behavior or from people that are frustrated with life, right? They're having a hard time, and nobody begrudges them for feeling frustrated. That's very normal. I think we all feel frustrated in those zones, right? Despite all of this, one of the unique things about administrators is they're willing to put in the extra effort. And you can really see that here on that bottom one, that, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed. The complexity is crazy, but you know what? We're ready to put in the extra effort. And, that's a really great value you get out of administrators for just that willingness to really do that. So really, to sum it all up, healthy supervisors create healthy work and healthy learning environments. And that's really what we want to kind of end off with, that's what we do. We create these network effects. We connect everything together to create a good humming machine, right? But we just, we really think that we're kind of at, an FTE limit here, as, my previous slide showed that, our work really hasn't decreased, but our capacity to do it, or at least our time allotted to do it, has decreased, right? And that means we're still doing it. It's just on longer periods of time before and after school. So we'll end off with that, and I'll throw it to any questions. Did I stop sharing my screen? Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation, Jeremy. Any questions from trustees? Trustee Horn.
Great. Always good to have a question from you.
Thanks, Jeremy, very much for your presentation. It's great to hear you explain to the board, which you've done to us as well in the past, but to show the board where the value lies within our administration. Thank you very much for doing that, and you do such a great job of that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Good job, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I have a question, Jeremy, and it's just on a personal side. Your slides that you share, is that specific for our district, or is that for principals across or admin staff across the province?
Yeah, so the last three or that three that had the BCP VPA symbol on it,
Mhm.
that was provincial. And I mean, I guess our numbers are buried in there somewhere. I believe our members took the same survey. But I think it would be generally reflective of our members too, right? It's a tough job. And I mean, I gotta say, as and I know we talked about this actually at one of the former or the principal meeting down south that I had, was like, some level of training program for principals, because it is a huge learning curve. Like you go from teaching in a classroom and then suddenly you have a parent crying to you on the phone, and you're like, wow, I've never been trained to deal with this. I was an English teacher, last week. And so it's just stuff like that, you really do get a lot of value in having those VPs start experiencing that. I mean, I'm a bit unique. I actually went right from teaching to being a principal, right? But I think having that VP thing is super beneficial to help kind of prime you, so you're not like deer in the headlights.
Mhm.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm not seeing any further questions, so I thank everybody who has attended tonight, virtually, in person, and I thank each and every one of you for your presentations, and we definitely will take all of this into consideration. And I do hope, that we all hold the children of our community at the center of our hearts, and definitely in the center of all the work that we do, and that any decision that we make, we do with our hearts and also with our minds, and we know that it's big work. Do you want to add any of these things?
Yeah, just a reminder to everyone that the next time we meet is on Tuesday, April 11th, which is reporting back to the public on the input received and ministry funding, which will be at 7 p.m. here in the Booth Building and online again.
Thank you all so much, everybody. Thank you, Dinesh, for all of your behind the scenes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Oh, yes, sorry, Trustee Warren.
Yes, I do know that this was recorded, this meeting. How do we access that recording?
The meeting will be placed on the website where we have, it'll say in the financials, where it'll say ABC meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.